You know, every single time you get a shot or an IV drip, really any injectable medicine, there's this silent guardian working behind the scenes to keep you safe. It's a process most of us have never even heard of, but it protects us from a really potent hidden danger. So let's get into this amazing story of medicine, risk, and a hero that is, well, pretty unexpected. So picture this. You've got a sterile vial of medicine. It's totally free of any living bacteria, completely clean. But what if I told you the most dangerous thing in that vial isn't the live bacteria, but the toxic ghosts they leave behind after they die? These things are called endotoxins, and basically, they're little bits of the outer shell of certain bacteria that get left behind when the bacteria kicks the bucket. Now, if these invisible little toxins get into your bloodstream, they can make your immune system go completely haywire. We are talking about a massive inflammatory response, fever, and in the worst cases, septic shock, which can be irreversible. I mean, just how serious is this? Well, in the US alone, septic shock is responsible for roughly 100,000 deaths every single year. So yeah, finding these endotoxins isn't just important, it is absolutely a matter of life and death. For decades, the solution to this incredibly dangerous problem didn't come from some high-tech lab. Nope, it came from the ocean. It came from a creature that's been crawling around since way before the dinosaurs. So back in the day, the only way to test for these fever-causing things, called pyrogens, was honestly pretty crude. Scientists would literally inject a sample into a rabbit and then just wait and see if the poor thing got a fever. It was slow, it was expensive, and it wasn't nearly sensitive enough. We really needed a better way. And that better way showed up in 1956, all thanks to the Atlantic horseshoe crab. I mean, this thing is a living fossil. And it turns out its primitive immune system is incredibly effective, and its milky blue blood held the key. And that key is the Limulus amoebocyte lysate test, or LAL for short. It's basically an extract made from the horseshoe crab's blood cells. And here's the magic. When this extract touches even a microscopic amount of endotoxin, it triggers this ancient defense mechanism that causes it to instantly form a gel, trapping the bad guys. It is nature's perfect little alarm system. So how exactly do we use this pre-stored superpower in a modern lab? Well, the basic method is actually surprisingly simple. Let's just walk through the classic method, which is called the gel clot test. You take a little sample of the drug you want to test, you mix it with the LAL reagent, and you let it warm up for about an hour. After that, you just flip the tube upside down. That's it. It's a simple pass or fail. And the result couldn't be clearer. If a solid gel has formed and it stays right there at the bottom of the tube when you flip it, that's a positive test. It means endotoxins are there. If it's still liquid and runs down the side, the sample is clean. It's simple, it's visual, and it is unbelievably sensitive. Now, of course, over time, the LAL test has gotten more advanced. Beyond that basic gel test, we now have ways to measure how much endotoxin is there. The turbidimetric method, for example, measures how cloudy the sample gets, and the chromogenic one uses a special reagent that turns yellow. The cool thing is, both of these can be automated, which is great for testing a ton of samples, but they can sometimes get thrown off by samples that are already colored or a bit cloudy. The LAL test has been an absolute cornerstone of drug safety for more than 50 years, and it has saved countless lives, no question. But this life-saving test comes with a pretty heavy price, not for us, but for the creature that makes it all possible. You see, the whole process starts out there in the wild. Every single year, hundreds of thousands of horseshoe crabs are gathered from the ocean for one reason: to have their blood drawn. And that's where the problem really starts. Horseshoe crab populations are already listed as vulnerable, and in some parts of Asia, they're even endangered. The bleeding process itself, where they take about a third of the crab's blood before returning it to the water, can have a mortality rate as high as 30%. 30%! So our reliance on this wild, vulnerable animal for such a critical global test, well, it creates a supply chain that's both fragile and, let's be honest, pretty tough to justify ethically. This dependency, this problem, has really pushed the scientific community to innovate, to find a way to get the magic of the horseshoe crab's blood, but without harming a single one of them. And this is it. It's called recombinant factor C, or rFC. Now, this is so cool. Scientists figured out the exact gene for factor C. That's the key protein in the crab's blood that first spots the endotoxin.
and they figured out how to make it in a lab. It's the exact same biosensor, but it's made sustainably, ethically, without ever touching a horseshoe crab.
And when you put them side by side, the advantages just jump out at you. You go from an animal-sourced product to a synthetic one, from relying on a vulnerable species to having a totally sustainable supply. Plus, the recombinant test is actually more specific. It doesn't get tricked by other things like beta-glucans, which can sometimes cause false alarms with the LAL test. And because it's manufactured in a controlled way, it's way more consistent from one batch to the next. And the big pharmaceutical companies are absolutely taking notice. You have major players like Roche coming out and saying things like this, that it's their ethical and environmental responsibility to switch to these alternatives. They see that you don't have to choose between animal welfare and patient safety. You can have both. So this isn't just some promising idea anymore. It is becoming the new standard. The United States Pharmacopoeia, that's the big authority that sets the official guidelines, has now published what's called Chapter 86. And this chapter officially recognizes recombinant methods like rFC as validated, totally legitimate alternatives to the old animal-based test. So, here we are. We have a synthetic, sustainable, and now officially recognized alternative that works just as well, if not better. It really leaves us with one big question. After decades of incredible service, is it finally time to say thank you and to retire our ancient blue-blooded savior for good?